that out. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It is August the 11th, 2021, day 230 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets and of the 3 year consecutive count, day 899. Today, y'all, we're reading Ezekiel 17, 18, and 19. And then we're going to pick up where we left off at yesterday in Fossilized Customs on page 302. All right, y'all. All right, so let's get started real quick with the Shema. Remember, the Shema is found in Deuteronomy chapter 3. I'm sorry. Yeah, Deuteronomy chapter 3. Hold on. I thought I pulled it up. Sorry. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 3. I knew it just felt wrong saying it. Tommy J. Shalom, shalom. All right, beautiful people. Shema, found in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 3. Hear, therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahuwah, the mighty one of our fathers, has promised us, in the land that flows with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah, our mighty one, he is one. And you shall love Yahuwah, your mighty one, with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them upon the posts of your house and on your gates. And Yahuwah commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear Yahuwah, our mighty one, for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do these commandments before Yahuwah, our mighty one, as he has commanded us. Do all these commandments before Yahuwah, our mighty one, as he has commanded us. All right, y'all. All right, y'all. Ezekiel chapter 17. A story of two eagles. Then this message came to me from Yahuwah, Son of man, give this riddle and tell this story to the people of Israel. Give them this message from the sovereign Lord. A great eagle with broad wings and long feathers covered with many colored plumage came to Lebanon. He seized the top of a cedar tree and plucked off its highest branch. He carried it away to a city filled with merchants. He planted it in a city of traders. He also took a seedling from the land and planted it in fertile soil. He placed it beside a broad river where it could grow like a willow tree. It took root there and grew into a low spreading vine. Its branches turned up toward the eagle, and its roots grew down into the ground. It produced strong branches and put out shoots. But then another great eagle came with broad wings and full plumage. So the vine now sent its roots and branches toward him for water, even though it was already planted in good soil and had plenty of water, so it could grow into a splendid vine and produce rich leaves and luscious fruit. So now the sovereign Lord asks, will this vine grow and prosper? No, I will pull it up, roots and all. I will cut off its fruit and let its leaves wither and die. I will pull it up easily without a strong arm or large army. But when the vine is transplanted, will it thrive? No, it will wither away when the east wind blows against it. It will die in the same good soil where it had grown so well. The riddle is explained. Then this message came to me from Yahuwah. Say to these rebels of Israel, don't you understand the meaning of this riddle of the eagles? The king of Babylon came to Jerusalem, took away her kings and princes, and brought them to Babylon. He made a treaty with a member of the royal family and forced him to take an oath of loyalty. He also exiled Israel's most influential leaders, so Israel would not become strong again and revolt. Only by keeping her treaty with Babylon could Israel survive. Nevertheless, this man of Israel's royal family rebelled against Babylon, sending ambassadors to Egypt to request a great army and many horses. Can Israel break her sworn treaties like that and get away with it? No. For surely as I live, says the sovereign Lord, the king of Israel will die in Babylon, the land of the king who put him in power and whose treaty he disregarded and broke. Pharaoh and all his mighty army will fail to help Israel when the king of Babylon lays siege to Jerusalem again and destroys many lives. For the king of Israel disregarded his treaty and broke it after swearing to obey. Therefore, he will not escape. So this is what the sovereign Lord says. As surely as I live, I will punish him for breaking my covenant and disregarding the solemn oath he made in my name. I will throw my net over him and capture him in my snare. I will bring him to Babylon and put him on trial for this treason against me. And all his best warriors will be killed in battle, and those who survive will be scattered to the four winds. Then you will know that I, Yahuwah, have spoken. This is what the sovereign Lord says. I will take a branch from the top of a tall cedar and I will plant it on the top of Israel's highest mountain. It will become a majestic cedar, sending forth its branches and producing seed. Birds of every sort will nest in it, finding shelter in the shade of its branches. And all these trees will know that it is I, Yahuwah, who cuts the tall tree down and makes the short tree grow tall. It is I who makes the green tree wither and gives the dead tree new life. I, Yahuwah, have spoken, and I will do what I have said. Next chapter, Ezekiel chapter 18. The justice of a righteous God. Then another message came to me from Yahuwah. Why do you quote this proverb concerning the land of Israel? The parents have eaten sour grapes, but their children's mouths pucker at the taste. As surely as I live, says Yahuwah, you will not quote this proverb anymore in Israel, for all people are mine to judge, both parents and children alike. And this is my rule. The person who sins is the one who will die. There you go. He's saying it again. Remember how I be reminding y'all. He said the righteous not going to die for the wicked, right? The wicked will die for themselves. I'll read again, verse 4. Just in case you just dozed off for a quick second. For all the people are mine to judge, both parents and children alike. And this is my rule. The person who sins is the one who will die. Suppose a certain man is righteous and does what is just and right. He does not feast in the mountains before Israel's idols or worship them. He does not commit adultery or have intercourse with a woman during her menstrual period. He is a merciful creditor, not keeping items given as security by poor debtors. He does not rob the poor, but instead gives food to the hungry and provides clothes for the needy. He grants loans without interest, stays away from injustice, is honest and fair when judging others, and faithfully obeys my decrees and regulations. Anyone who does these things is just and will surely live, says Yahuwah. But suppose that man, this same righteous man we just spoke about, suppose that man has a son who grows up to be a robber or murderer and refuses to do what is right. And that son does all the evil things his father would never do. He worships idols on the mountains he worships idols on the mountains, commits adultery, oppresses the poor and helpless, steals from debtors by refusing to let them redeem their security, worships idols, commits detestable sins, and lends money at excessive interest. Should such a sinful person live? No, he must die and take full blame. But suppose that sinful son in turn has a son who sees his father's wickedness and decides against that kind of life. This son refuses to worship idols on mountains and does not commit adultery. He does not exploit the poor, but instead is fair to debtors and does not rob them. He gives food to the hungry and provides clothes for the needy. He helps the poor, does not lend money at interest, and obeys all my regulations and decrees. Such a person will not die because of his father's sins. He will surely live, but the father will die for his many sins, for being cruel, robbing people, and doing what was clearly wrong among his people. What, you ask? Doesn't the children pay for the parents' sins? No. For if the child does what is just and right and keep my decrees, that child will surely live. The person who sins is the one who will die. The child will not be punished for the parent's sins, and the parent will not be punished for the children's sins. Righteous people will be rewarded for their own righteous behavior, and wicked people will be punished for their own wickedness. But if wicked people turn away from all their sins and begin to obey my decrees and do what is right and just, then they will surely live and not die. All their past sins will be forgotten, and they will live because of the righteous things they have done. Do you think that I like to see wicked people die? Says Yahuwah. Of course not. I want them to turn from their wicked ways and live. However, if righteous people turn from their righteous behavior and start doing sinful things and act like other sinners, should they be allowed to live? No, of course not. All their righteous acts will be forgotten and they will die for their sins. Yet you say Yahuwah isn't doing what's right. Listen to me, O people of Israel. Am I the one not doing what's right, or is it you? When righteous people turn from their righteous behavior and start doing sinful things, they will die for it. Yes, they will die because of their own sinful deeds. And if wicked people turn from their wickedness, obey the law, and do what is just and right, they will save their lives. They will save their lives. They will save their lives. They will live because they thought it over and decided to turn from their sins. Such people will not die. And yet the people of Israel keep saying it's Yahuwah who isn't doing what's right. O people of Israel, it is you who is not doing what is right, not I. Therefore, I will judge each of you, O people of Israel, according to your actions, says Yahuwah. Repent and turn from your sins. Don't let them destroy you. Put all your rebellion behind you and find yourselves a new heart and a new spirit. For why should you die, O people of Israel? I don't want you to die, says Yahuwah. Turn back and live, right? That has always been his thing from the very beginning, right? He didn't say you could use nothing, not everything, no blood, no nothing. What he say? He says, stop doing what's wrong and do what's right. Turn around and do what's right, right? Remember, the only time that you suffer for your parents' sins, the only time children are punished for their parents' sins is because that child didn't stop doing what their parent was doing, sinning. So technically, you are dying for your parents' sins, but in fact, you are dying because you made your parents' sins your very own. So now you're dying for your own sins, right? It don't get any easier than that. It doesn't get any more plain than that. Dream Sky Lover, good morning. All right, y'all. Last chapter for the day, Ezekiel chapter 19. A funeral song for Israel's kings. Sing this funeral song for the princes of Israel. What is your mother? A lioness among lions. She lay down among the young lions and reared her cubs. She raised one of her cubs to become a strong young lion. He learned to hunt and devour prey, and he became a man-eater. Then the nations heard about him, and he was trapped in their pit. They led him away with hooks to the land of Egypt. When the lioness saw that her hopes for him were gone, she took another of her cubs and taught him to be strong. Taught him to be a strong young lion. He prowled among the other lions and stood out among them in his strength. He learned to hunt and devour prey, and he too became a man eater. He demolished fortresses and destroyed their towns and cities. Their farms were desolated and their crops were destroyed. The land and its people trembled in fear when they heard him roar. Then the armies of the nations attacked him, surrounding him from every direction. They threw a net over him and captured him in their pit. With hooks, they dragged him into a cage and brought him before the king of Babylon. They held him in captivity, so his voice could never again be heard on the mountains of Israel. Your mother was like a vine planted by the water's edge. It had lush green foliage because of the abundant water. Its branches became strong, strong enough to be a ruler's scepter. It grew very tall, towering above all others. It stood out because of its height and its many lush branches, but the vine was uprooted in fury and thrown down to the ground. The desert wind dried up its fruit and tore off its strong branches so that it withered and was destroyed by fire. Now the vine is transplanted to the wilderness where the ground is hard and dry. A fire has burst out from its branches and devoured its fruit. Its remaining limbs are not strong enough to be a ruler's scepter. This is a funeral song, and it will be used in a funeral. Morning, Uncle JB. All right, y'all. So that is it for our 3 chapters for today. That was Ezekiel 17, 18, and 19. And we're about to pick up over here on page 302. And we were talking about what you come running downstairs like that for? We were talking about how restoration is underway, right? Let me see. I'll start because I said I was going to start a little bit at this last, not the whole last paragraph. Well, actually, I probably just should. It's not that long. Okay. It says stop on page 301. Stop. Read all the text at Jeremiah chapter 31, taking note of what you have learned so far here. A bright light will dawn on you. Yahuwah will return when the fullness of the Gentiles is restored to the covenant, since Gentiles as a whole are lost, scattered tribes, the descendants of Israel. So remember, we kind of talked about that a little bit yesterday when we discussed that if you're Israelite, the blood-born, and you're living amongst the Gentiles and living like the Gentiles, you will literally consider the Gentile, right? Okay. We must not attempt to regather ourselves to the land before the proper time, since our being scattered is the consequence of our not living according to the covenant. Yahuwah is the mediator of the covenant, and he circumcises our heart with the love for the Torah. He takes away our hatred of the covenant as well as our sins against it. He is working through his ambassadors today, speaking to the remnant or the first fruits. He is speaking to the remnant, his first fruits. He is calling us back to the covenant. The restoration is now underway. The regathering will occur at the end of the Great Tribulation when he returns to reign forever on the earth. He will restore Israel into one stick, and the house of Israel will be united under him as one people. Ezekiel chapter 37. For now, we are to be a light to the Gentiles, to awaken them to their idolatry and the profanation of the covenant, but also to their heritage, Yahuwah and his covenant. The prodigal son parable is about the lost tribes of Israel who left the father's household or left his Torah or his covenant, right? Here is the retelling of the covenant for the tribes given at Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 6 through 21. This is where we stopped at yesterday. The everlasting covenant of love. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You have no other mighty ones against my face. You do not make for yourself a carved image hold on. So this is reading through the 10 commandments, but in Deuteronomy chapter 5, it gives it instead of just giving the quick summary of the 10, like we normally do. Thou shalt have no other God before my face, thou shalt not commit idolatry, thou shalt not cause my name to go to ruin, thou shalt keep the Sabbath, all the way down, right? All the way to number 10. It's given kind of the expanded version here. Okay, so 1, I am Yahuwah, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You are to have no other mighty ones before my face. Number 2, you do not make for yourself a carved image of any likeness of which is in the heavens above, or which is in the earth beneath, or which is in the waters under the earth, and you do not bow down to them nor serve them. For I, Yahuwah, your Elohim, am a jealous El, visiting the crookedness of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing loving kindness to thousands, to those who love me and guard my commands. Number 3, you do not cast the name of Yahuwah your Elohim to ruin, for Yahuwah does not leave him unpunished who casts his name to ruin. Number 4, guard the Sabbath day to set it apart, as Yahuwah your Elohim commanded you. 6 days you labor and shall do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah your Elohim. You do not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your ox, nor your donkey, nor any of your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates, so that your male servant and female servant rest as you do. And you shall not remember, and you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and that Yahuwah your Elohim brought you out from there by a strong hand and by an outstretched arm. Therefore, Yahuwah your Elohim commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. Number 5, you are to respect your father and your mother, as Yahuwah your Elohim has commanded you, so that your days are prolonged, and so that it is well with you on the soil which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you. Number 6, you do not murder. Number 7, you do not break wedlock. Number 8, you do not steal. Number 9, you do not bear false witness against your neighbor. And 10, you do not covet your neighbor's wife, nor do you desire your neighbor's house, his field, his male servant, nor his female servant, his ox, nor his donkey, or whatever belongs to your neighbor. The purpose is to teach us how to love, right? Yahuwah has hidden the lost tribes of Israel among the Gentiles. Isaiah chapter 49 and 2. He has made my mouth like a sharp sword. In the shadow of his hand, he hid me and made me a polished shaft. In his quiver, he hid me. Yahuwah has multiplied Israel among the Gentiles for the last days. Stop. Read all of Isaiah chapter 49. Ezekiel, we should read it, right? We actually should have read 31 when it told us to stop. Chapter 31. Okay, let's do that real quick. We're gonna do it real quick. Let's read Jeremiah 31. Think about what we just read. This goes for 31. Then we'll hop over to Isaiah chapter 49. So let's do that real quick. I know we recently read Jeremiah 31, but just a refresher. Remember what we just read right here. So this goes with Jeremiah chapter 31. And it's hope for restoration. Shayla, hey girl, hey. In that day, says Yahuwah, I will be the God of all the families of Israel, and they will be my people. This is what Yahuwah says. Those who survive the coming destruction will find blessings even in the barren land, for I will give rest to the people of Israel. Long ago, Yahuwah said to Israel, I have loved you, my people, with an everlasting love. With unfailing love, I have drawn you to myself. I will rebuild you, my virgin Israel. You will again be happy and dance merrily with your tambourines, and you will plant your vineyards on the mountains of Samaria and eat from your own gardens there. The day will come when watchmen will shout from the hill country of Ephraim, come, let us go up to Jerusalem to worship Yahuwah our God. Now this is what Yahuwah says. Sing with joy for Israel. Shouts for the greatest of nations. Shout out with praise and joy. Save your people, O Yahuwah, the remnant of Israel. For I will bring them from the north and from the distant corners of the earth. I will not forget the blind and lame, the expectant mothers and women in labor. A great company will return. Tears of joy will stream down their faces, and I will lead them home with great care. They will walk beside quiet streams and on smooth paths where they will not stumble. For I am Israel's father, and Ephraim is my oldest child. Listen to this message from Yahuwah, you nations of the world. Proclaim it in distant coastlands. Yahuwah, who scattered his people, will gather them and watch over them as a shepherd does his flock. For Yahuwah has redeemed Israel from those who were too strong for them. They will come home and sing songs of joy in the heights of Jerusalem. They will be radiant because of Yahuwah's good gifts, the abundant crops of grain, new wine and olive oil, and the healthy flocks and herds. Their life will be like a watered garden, and all their sorrows will be gone. The young women will dance for joy, and the men, old and young, will join in the celebration. I will turn their mourning into joy. I will comfort them and exchange their sorrow for rejoicing. The priests will enjoy abundance, and my people will feast on my good gifts. I, Yahuwah, have spoken. This is what Yahuwah says. A cry is heard in Ramah, deep anguish and bitter weeping. Rachel weeps for her children, refusing to be comforted, for her children are gone. But now this is what Yahuwah says. Do not weep any longer, for I will reward you, says Yahuwah. Your children will come back to you from the distant lands of the enemy. There is hope for your future, says Yahuwah. Your children will come again to their own land. I have heard Israel saying, you disciplined me severely, like a calf that needs training for the yoke. Turn me again to you and restore me, for you alone are Yahuwah, my God. I turned away from Yahuwah, but then I was sorry. I kicked myself for my stupidity. I was thoroughly ashamed of all I did in my younger days. Is not Israel still my son, my darling child, says Yahuwah? I often have to punish him, but I still love him. That's why I long for him and surely will have mercy on him. Set up road signs, put up guideposts, mark well the path by which you came. Come back again, my virgin Israel. Return to your towns here. How long will you wander, my wayward daughter? For Yahuwah will cause something new to happen. Israel will embrace her God. This is what Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies, the God of Israel, says. When I bring them back from captivity, the people of Judah and its towns will again say, Yahuwah bless you, O righteous home, O holy mountain. Townspeople and farmers and shepherds alike will live together in peace and happiness, for I have given rest to the weary and joy to the sorrowing. At this, I woke up and looked around. My sleep had been very sweet. The day is coming, says Yahuwah, when I will greatly increase the human population and the number of animals here in Israel and Judah. In the past, I deliberately uprooted and tore down this nation. I overthrew it, destroyed it, and brought disaster upon it. But in the future, I will just as deliberately plant it and build it up. I, Yahuwah, have spoken. The people will no longer quote this proverb. The parents have eaten sour grapes, but their children's mouths pucker at the taste. Then we read that today in Ezekiel, the same exact thing, right? Look, I'm glad we came back and read this because it's saying it again all the way back in Jeremiah, verse 30. All the people will die for their own sins. Those who eat the sour grapes will be the ones whose mouths will pucker. The day is coming, says Yahuwah, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and Judah. Listen, HB Shalom, Mom Shalom. Just a reminder for those who are really unclear still about what the covenant is, what Yahuwah said his covenant is, and the new covenant that he's making ain't got nothing, everything to do with nobody blood, nobody down on no cross. I know that sounds like blasphemy, and I always lose subscribers When I say that, oh well, the truth is the truth. That's not what he said. This is what he said. Listen, pay attention, y'all. Just if you don't agree with it, just go sit back somewhere and just think about it, meditate it, read through the scriptures, and you come to the conclusion. Read what it says. The day is coming, says Yahuwah, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and Judah. This covenant will not be like the one I made with their ancestors when I took them by the hand and brought them out of the land of Egypt. They broke that covenant, though I love them as a husband loves his wife, says Yahuwah. But this is the new covenant I will make with the people of Israel after those days, says Yahuwah. I will put my instructions deep within them, and I will write them on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people, and they will not need to teach their neighbors, nor will they need to teach their relatives, saying, you should know Yahuwah. For everyone, from the least to the greatest, will already know me, says Yahuwah, and I will forgive their wickedness, and I will never again remember their sins. It is Yahuwah who provides the sun to light the day and the moon and stars to light the night, and who stirs the sea into roaring waves. His name is Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies, and this is what he says. I am as likely to reject my people Israel as I am to abolish the laws of nature. This is what Yahuwah says. Just as the heavens cannot be measured and the foundations of the earth cannot be explored, so I will not consider casting them away for all the evil they have done. I, Yahuwah, have spoken. The day is coming, says Yahuwah, when all Jerusalem will be rebuilt for me, from the tower of Hananel to the corner gate. A measuring line will be stretched out over the hill of Gareb and across Goa, the entire area, including the graveyard and ash dump in the valley and all the fields out to the Kidron Valley on the east, as far as the horse gate, will be holy unto Yahuwah. The city will never again be captured or destroyed, right? Okay, so that went with clearly what I'm reading for today. It matches up perfectly. But when he was talking about the everlasting covenant of love, and he was reading, we read this from Deuteronomy chapter 5, verses 6 through 21. But it told us yesterday, a little bit earlier, it told us to begin this section with reading this particular chapter. So you can see how it just kind of flows through, right? Okay. So now we're at the section where it says, stop again. Read all of Isaiah chapter 49, right? So let's go. I'm sorry. Yeah. What? Yeah, I'm sorry. I was looking at the name wrong. He did it in Hebrew. He said Yasha. Hold on. Isaiah 49. Isaiah 49. Yahuwah's servant commission. Listen to me, all you distant lands. Pay attention, you who are far away. Yahuwah called me before my birth. From within the womb, he called me by name. He made my words of judgment as sharp as a sword. He has hidden me in the shadow of his hand. I am like a sharp arrow in his quiver. He said to me, you are my servant Israel, and you will bring me glory. I replied, but my work seems so useless. I have spent my strength for nothing and to no purpose. Yet I leave it all in Yahuwah's hand. I will trust Yahuwah for my reward. And now Yahuwah speaks, the one who formed me in my mother's womb to be his servant, who commissioned me to bring Israel back to him. Yahuwah has honored me, and my God has given me strength. He says, you will do more than restore the people of Israel to me. I will make you a light to the Gentiles, and you will bring my salvation to the ends of the earth. Yahuwah, the Redeemer, and the Holy One of Israel, says to the one who is despised and rejected by the nations, to the one who is the servant of rulers, Kings will stand at attention when you pass by. Princes will also bow low because of Yahuwah, the faithful one, the Holy One of Israel has chosen you. Promises of Israel's restoration, right? Look, so we know that this commissioned servant is Israel, right? But right now, Israel is in captivity. But he says that when I call you back, he said the kings, matter of fact, this you got to start reading here. When people start getting to that Isaiah chapter 53, you got to go all the way back here. Preferably, I'd say go back to Isaiah 48 because you got to see it's building it all up. Remember, in the original scrolls, there was no chapter cuttings, right? They cut it off at the wrong place and they teach people to believe it's something else when you just completely forget everything that was just said and how it described who this servant, the commissioned servant, the suffering servant was. It's Israel, right? After all the nations have done all of these terrible things to them, and they realize, oh, these are Yahuwah's people. They said they're going to stand in awe, right? When you pass by, and princes will begin to bow low because how faithful Yahuwah has been to his people and how he's redeemed them, right? So if we keep on reading, it's promises of Israel's restoration. This is what Yahuwah says. At just the right time, I will respond to you. On the day of salvation, I will help you. I will protect you and give you to the people as my covenant with them. Through you, I will reestablish the land of Israel and assign it to its own people again. I will say to the prisoners, come out in freedom, and to those in darkness, come into the light. They will be my sheep grazing in green pastures on hills that were previously bare. They will neither hunger nor thirst. The searing sun will not reach them anymore. For Yahuwah in his mercy will lead them, and he will lead them beside cool waters. And I will make my mountains into level paths for them. The highways will be raised above the valleys. See, my people will return from far away, from the lands to the north and west, and from as far as south of Egypt, and as far south as Egypt. Sing for joy, O heavens. Rejoice, O earth. Burst into song, O mountains, for Yahuwah has comforted his people and will have compassion on them in their suffering. Yet Jerusalem says, Yahuwah has deserted us. Yahuwah has forgotten us. Never. Can a mother forget her nursing child? Can she feel no love for the child she has born? But even if that were possible, I would not forget you. See, I have written you on the palms of my hands. Always in mind is a picture of Jerusalem's wall in ruins. Soon, your descendants will come back, and all who are trying to destroy you will go away. Look around and see, for all your children will come back to you. As surely as I live, says Yahuwah, they will be like jewels or bridal ornaments for you to display. Even the most desolate parts of your abandoned land will soon be crowded with your people. Your enemies who enslaved you will be far away. The generations born into exile will return and say, we need more room. It's crowded here. Then you would think to yourself, who has given me all these descendants? For most of my children were killed, and the rest were carried away into exile. I was left here all alone. Where did all these people come from? Who bore these children? Who raised them for me? This is what the sovereign Lord says. See, I will give a signal to the godless nations. They will carry your little sons back to you in their arms. They will bring your daughters on their shoulders. Kings and queens will serve you and care for all your needs. They will bow to the earth before you and lick the dust from your feet. Then you will know that I am Yahuwah. Those who trust in me would never be put to shame. Who can snatch the plunder of war from the hands of a warrior? Who can demand that a tyrant let his captives go? But Yahuwah says, the captives of warriors will be released, and the plunder of tyrants will be retrieved. For I will fight those who fight you, and I will save your children. I will feed your enemies with their own flesh. They will be drunk with rivers of their own blood. All the world will know that I, Yahuwah, am your Savior and your Redeemer, the mighty one of Israel. I love these chapters, y'all. I love these chapters. Okay. So it says, stop, Read all of Isaiah chapter 49. Ezekiel is all about the scattering and regathering plan which Yahuwah has for his people, with whom the Gentiles must engraft through the covenant. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 through 13, and Romans 11. You are a lost or cut off descendant of the scattered tribes of Israel. When you repent and take up the covenant again, look, here we go. You got this wrong. I was about to say it. Caught myself like there. Okay, hold on. Let me fix it. All right. When you repent and take up the covenant again, through the immersion in the name of Yahuwah, you become a fellow citizen, a member of the Nazarene. The renewal of the covenant is described at Hebrews chapter 8. And it says, read all of Ephesians chapter 3 and Jeremiah 3, and you will be enabled to know the secret of the ages. It was veiled to you unto this time, but the veil is being lifted. Yahuwah was sent to seek and, hold on. It says here, no. It says here, Yahusha was sent to seek and save that which was lost. If you accept his covenant, he has done for you by right. Hold on, what? That don't even make sense. Okay. Let me go back. Read all of Ephesians chapter 3 and Jeremiah 3, and you will be enabled to know the secret of the ages. It was veiled to you until this time, but the veil is being lifted. Yahuwah is saving that which was lost. If you accept his covenant, what he has done for you. What? Okay. Oh, I'm missing a word. Okay, I don't know why I keep skipping over that. Okay. If you accept his covenant, he has done that for you by writing his covenant upon your heart. Okay, so I know these long chapters again. Where we at? Hold on. We're going to go read this. We have 42 minutes. Okay. The renewal of the covenant is described in Hebrews chapter 8, which they don't give it in full detail at Hebrews chapter 8. They just really kind of chop it up. And by them chopping it up the way they did, it leads you to believe it could, depending on who's teaching you, if they don't take you back to where it originally was, it will lead you to believe that it's saying something else when it's not. Yeah, see, I don't like how they try and screw with this with Ephesians, with what Yahuwah said, and they replace Yahuwah with JC's. I don't like how they did that. We'll stick with Yahuwah's. Hold on. Yeah, because this changes. You can't use Ephesians chapter 3 with this. You absolutely can't. I'm just looking at it. Mm-mm. I was gonna read it. I know I'd be harping on the New Testament sometime, but here's one of the places where I would have to do more explaining, and it just doesn't line up with what we were just talking about. Okay, so we'll do Jeremiah chapter 3. That's gonna take it. There's too much leaven in that chapter. Like it sounds good, but if you put it against what Yahuwah said, align it up, it's like, wait a minute, what? No, make this make sense. Go to Jeremiah chapter 3. Okay. And this is it's telling you by reading this chapter, you'll become more clear of what the covenant really is and how we can use examples in our life. Well, Yahuwah clearly uses examples that we experience on the physical level between human beings, husband and wife, to explain to us the relationship between Israel and himself, right? So when he uses these, it kind of helps to unlock how we should relate to him, right? Okay, so that's why he was using these to kind of see that, because it's saying the secret chapters, the secret is revealed in these chapters of what Yahuwah is conveying between our relationship with him by using the human relationships, husband and wife, right? Jeremiah chapter 3. If a man divorces a woman and she goes and marries someone else, he will not take her back again, for that would surely corrupt the land. But you have prostituted yourself with many lovers. So why are you trying to come back to me, says Yahuwah? Look at the shrines on every hilltop. Is there any place you have not been defiled by the adultery with other gods? You sit like a prostitute beside the road waiting for a customer. You sit alone like a nomad in the desert. You have polluted the land with your prostitution and your wickedness. That's why even the spring rains have failed. For you are a brazen prostitute and completely shameless. Y'all remember when we was reading through this, right? Yet you say to me, Father, you have been my guide since my youth. Surely you won't be angry forever. Surely you can forget about it. So you talk, but you keep on doing all the evil you can. During the reign of King Josiah, Yahuwah said to me, have you seen what fickle Israel has done? Like a wife who commits adultery, Israel has worshipped other gods on every hill and under every green tree. I thought after she has done all of this, she will return to me, but she did not return. And her faithless sister Judah saw this. She saw that I divorced faithless Israel because of her adultery, but that treacherous sister Judah had no fear. And now she too has left me and given herself to prostitution. Israel treated it all so lightly. She thought nothing of committing adultery by worshiping idols made of wood and stone. So now the land has been polluted. But despite all of this, her faithless sister Judah has never sincerely returned to me. She has only pretended to be sorry. I, Yahuwah, have spoken. Hope for wayward Israel. Then Yahuwah said to me, even faithless Israel is less guilty than treacherous Judah. Therefore, go and give this message to Israel. This is what Yahuwah says. O Israel, my faithless people, come home to me again, for I am merciful. I will not be angry with you forever. Only acknowledge your guilt. Admit that you have rebelled against Yahuwah your God and committed adultery against him by worshiping idols under every green tree. Confess that you have refused to listen to my voice. I, Yahuwah, have spoken. Return home, you wayward children, says Yahuwah, for I am your master. I will bring you back to the land of Israel, one from this town and two from that family, from wherever you were scattered. And I will give you shepherds after my own heart, who will guide you with knowledge and understanding. And when your land is once more filled with people, says Yahuwah, you will no longer wish for the good old days when you possess the ark of Yahuwah's covenant. You will not miss those days or even remember them, and there will be no need to rebuild the ark. In that day, Jerusalem will be known as the throne of Yahuwah. All nations will come there to honor Yahuwah. They will no longer stubbornly follow their own evil desires. In those days, the people of Judah and Israel will return together from exile in the north. They will return to the land I gave your ancestors as an inheritance forever. I thought to myself, I would love to treat you as my own children. I wanted nothing more than to give you this beautiful land, the finest possession in the world. I look forward to you calling me Father, and I wanted you to never turn from me. But you have been unfaithful to me, you people of Israel. You have been like a faithless wife who leaves her husband. I, Yahuwah, have spoken. Voices are heard high on the windswept mountains, the weeping and pleading of Israel's people, for they have chosen crooked paths and have forgotten Yahuwah their God. My wayward children, says Yahuwah, come back to me, and I will heal your wayward hearts. Yes, we're coming, the people reply, for you are Yahuwah our God. Our worship of idols on the hills and our religious orgies on the mountains are a delusion. Only in Yahuwah our God will Israel ever find salvation. From childhood, we have watched as everything our ancestors worked for, their flocks and herds, their sons and daughters, was squandered on a delusion. Let us now lie down in shame and cover ourselves with dishonor, For we and our ancestors have sinned against Yahuwah our God. From our childhood to this day, we have never obeyed him. All right, y'all. So I know we had to go back and read some long chapters, but let's go to this next section. Where we at? Okay, we have 50 minutes. All right. The tribes gathered at the return of Yahuwah. Dan, Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh, Ephraim, Reuben, Judah, Levi, Benjamin, Simeon, Issachar, Zebulun, and Gad. Ezekiel chapter 48. Those Israelites in the land prior to the regathering are to flee to the mountains, or mountains means the actual nations, right? So when you read it, and if you do the etymology of it, you will see it that when they say flee to the mountains, it means flee to there are actually some people who fled to actual mountains, but most of the time when you see it, it's talking about the nations, like get out of here, go mix yourself with other people so you cannot be found, right? Flee to the nations. The tribes of Israel were scattered due to their unfaithfulness, but the faithfulness of Yahuwah to his covenant is unwavering. He promised that they would be scattered and in the latter days obey his covenant while still in their captivity among the nations. When the fullness of the Gentiles comes in to the covenant, Yahuwah will return and regather them from the ends of the earth. They must not regather themselves to the land prior to his return. Otherwise, they will become a part of the great feast of Yahuwah, fed to the birds and the beasts at the end of the great tribulation. Ezekiel chapter 39. Verses 17 through 29, just prior to his return. So that's talking about the judgment, right? And you can kind of see if you look over the internet, some people YouTube channels, some people talking about moving back to certain places like to Africa. Some people, they saying that, well, this is the land. You got all these arguments, but people are up and moving, right? And if Yahuwah is not guiding you to move, you might find yourself in a world of trouble, right? So don't do it until you absolutely know for certain, right? And what that actually looks like for us, right? Okay. Some things being practiced are leavening because they add to Torah and are expected or required by men. Human conventions are optional. The house of Judah, both those who believe in Yahusha as well as those who don't, have many forms of behavior which are well intended, long-lived traditions. There are some traditions which enhance Torah observance and others which are less so. Many traditions we tend to accept are not specifically commanded by Torah, yet they help in promoting the true faith. One example is the concept of the synagogue, which grew in popularity even before the Second Temple was destroyed and made teaching foreigners more convenient because foreigners were not allowed to enter into the inner areas of the temple. Though not commanded, the synagogue made instruction of adult converts possible. As we find in the book of Acts, there were many Gentiles listening to what was taught by attending structured readings of the Tanakh, which is the Torah, prophets, and writings, right? Tanakh is short for Torah, prophets, and writings. We can embrace some traditions as long as they don't become the end in themselves and they are not used to promote a sense of piety when observed by others. Many things have no basis in Torah whatsoever and are mostly for displaying outward piety. Man's approval or titles mean nothing to Yahuwah because he is watching for love and humility to bear fruit in us all. For our personal lives, we should accept or reject things based upon wisdom or knowledge guided by Torah. If anything is not required by Torah, we should not impose it on others. If we should be doing something, then we should study about it carefully in Torah and teach our children how and why it is to be done. The Pharisees were those of a sect which called themselves rabbis, and they also accepted Yahusha to be one of them. They called him rabbi. This sect evolved into the dominant framework of what is known today as rabbinical Judaism. This sect steers the Orthodox Yahudim, but it is not the true faith as many might perceive it to be. The problem with it is the Talmud. We are not to add or take anything away from Torah. The cedar plate and the Haggadah telling can be fined depending on how much of their contents is added or taken away from what is expected of us. We don't need any eggs, just the matzah and bitter herbs will do. The following forms of behavior are a bit difficult to find in scripture. Wearing of a kippah, or the little yarmulkes, or the little skull cap that they wear back there in the center of their head. You want to just like hit them on the back of it. We don't need, hold on. The following forms of behavior are a bit difficult to find in scripture. Wearing of a kippah, wearing of a prayer shawl or a katan, as contrasted with just going into a small room alone to pray privately to Yahuwah our Father, and put on some tzitzits or tzitzits on your regular clothing. Davening, right? This rocking forward while praying, from Yiddish verb daven, pray. Praying is certainly fine, but rocking your body back and forth to be seen while doing so is a bit of a stretch, right? Man, we ain't doing that crap. Good morning, Kathy. In the end, only Yahuwah can exalt us. Hold on, I done skipped down. Hold on, I missed a whole sentence. Oh, okay. Praying is certainly fine, but rocking your body back and forth to be seen while doing so is a bit of a stretch. Lighting 2 candles before Sabbath begins, bestowing the title rabbi, exaltations, or ordinations. In the end, only Yahuwah can exalt us. So, like, a lot of these things were added that people do. This, I'm just like, I ain't doing none of this stuff. Like, even as I was coming out of the church and going into like the Hebrew congregations or synagogues or the temple, they called it different things, right? And then from moving to like a smaller, more intimate type group, and it's like y'all doing some of the same crap. I don't know about all this. All of this is like you're adding extra stuff. Like, what if some people ain't got the money to go get some of this crap to do all this stuff, right? Why can't we just pray? Like, why can't we just, Father, help me? Right? Why can't we can literally just do just that. We don't need all this extra stuff. They just be bogging people down by the time they get through doing, you got to do this and you need this. Oh, don't forget these type of candles. You need this too. Oh, okay. So when you pray, make sure you're facing the east. You got to make sure the sun is shining though, right? It, like, all of this dumb crap, right? Not if you do that, I'm sorry, right? But I'm just saying. Y'all get my point. You don't have to do all of this stuff. You really don't to get results and answers from y'all, right? Like, seriously, I'd be like, y'all, help a sister out. Help me, right? Like, seriously, that's what I do. I get answers. I get results, right? It works. What we teach our children and others needs to be well-founded in Torah and less chaff that is worthless human tradition only for show. We have to be sensitive and not offended. We have to be sensitive and not offend those who associate traditional behaviors like the above with devotion to Yahuwah. Many believe it is pious to never pronounce the name Yahuwah, but all of these imposed thought processes are strongholds they need to overcome. But all of these imposed thought processes are strongholds they need to overcome through more Torah study. A stronghold is any kind of false reasoning. John chapter 8, verses 31 and 32. So Yahushua said to those Yahudim who believed in him, if you stay in my word, you are truly my taught ones, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Well, if he's referring to the Torah of Yahuwah, where he's made it his own to say you stay in mine, well, we talking about what Yahuwah has said, then okay, yes, you stay in that, you will be made free. The Torah will make you free, right? Monkey see, monkey do is a weak principle to base our behavior on. Abiding in Yahuwah's word will enable us to know the truth. Not Sarim are not united perfectly, but they do their best to observe the appointed times as best they can. Some choose the sighting of the crescent moon as the beginning point of each moon. They feel the Hillel calendar to be an error, believing we should set the new moons according to the crescent sighting without any scriptural evidence because there is no crescent sighting mentioned in scripture. Many validate what they do based on interpretations. What we practice should be based on reality, and the real moon is our timepiece. Elders have taught the Elders have taught New Not Serene there is a sighted crescent. If we start at 0, the dark moon, then the full moon arrives on the 15th day. Scripture doesn't teach or describe a crescent sighting, but the Quran and the Hadith of Islam do. Because there is no instruction to do so, the sighted crescent most have been taught to watch for is not the beginning of the first day, but rather the beginning of the second day. There is a scriptural base for using the dark moon because the full moon is evidence that we started correctly. The new moon is 15 days before the full moon. That probably sounds like a bunch of blah, blah, blah to y'all. But actually what he said, if you calculate that the way I show it to you, like we just had a new moon on Monday, I forgot to tell y'all, right? So it's a new moon. But remember what he said right here. He said listen, because there is no instruction to do so, the sighted crescent, which was sighted Monday, right? Most have been taught to watch for is not the beginning of the first day, but rather the beginning of the second day. There is a scriptural basis for using the dark moon because the full moon is evidence that we started correctly. The new moon is 15 days before the full moon. So when I was calculating this, I kind of noticed that, right? So when you count it, that's how people, they kind of get off on the countings. They count the day that you actually sight the moon as day 1. I used to do that. I was like, this is still being off. So the way I explained, I said the day you sight the moon is new moon day. And then the next day, because you sight the moon at night. I hope I keep y'all when I'm saying this. But I never say the new moon day is the first day of the month, although technically it's at the beginning, but it's not. It's the second day, right? Because let me make sure I explain this the right way. And when you cite it, I always say this is new moon day. Then you counting the next day after that would be like day 1 of the sun shining of the new month. But technically it is day 1, but it was at night when you cited it. But when you cited it, it was also the last day of the previous month. So they don't overlap, but it's like it just shows itself for like a couple hours, letting you know, hey, we're beginning the day again, right? Like we're beginning a new month. A new month is coming in. So instead of calling it like the day 1, it's literally, I just call it new moon day. And then we began to count. And that's how you begin to see everything actually begin to line up perfectly. Like I had to do it a couple months doing it that way. And then I had to reverse engineer it, finding the 15th day of the month with a full moon and count backwards. So what would throw me off is when we got to the 15th day of the month, which was the full moon, my count would be off by a day. Sometimes 2, if I wasn't calculating the transition days of the moon. I was like, what is going on here? Because when you count new moon day as day 1, it throws off the count. So that's why it's called new moon day. And then you begin the count again, right? So that's how I learned that the new moon is like the line leader of the Sabbath, right? So now we're going to be resting on Mondays, right? Because the new moon day, when you actually, it's easier to understand when you're actually writing it down and you're actually observing it outside. It's a lot easier to explain it, or at least to understand it, if you actually been in a habit of doing it, so you know what I'm talking about. Because when you just try to explain it to people, I found out it's like, yeah, that still don't sound right. And I even go to different people channels that actually track it, and people are kind of asking them the same thing, like, well, how is you wait, no, that don't sound right. And so they'll be telling them you'll actually have to go watch it so you can actually see it, right? Okay, so, but moon phases. Hold on, let me see how far this goes, because we are at an hour. I don't think, yeah, we're gonna pause right here because now it's about to go into the moon phases as seen from the earth. So we'll pause it right here. All right, y'all. So that'll be it for today. I probably should have saved that little bit, what I just read, for tomorrow, because it's gonna go into all of this, right? Not in a lot of detail, but it's gonna kind of give it to you. Okay. You said, do I have the dates for the fall feast days? Not yet. I need to go through and calculate. It's coming up. I'll be doing it soon. I'll let y'all know as soon as I finish calculating, right? Because I did calculate it ahead of time, but a few months ago at the beginning of the year, when we kind of got it wrong for 1 month, everybody got it, not just me. But I thought it was just me. I was like, wait, what I do wrong? So I'm going to check everybody else. And I realized everybody else had got it wrong too. I don't know. Everybody must have just been relying on technology. Maybe we was all looking at the same stuff, but everybody got it wrong. Now, I ain't gonna say everybody, a few people. But we thought the new moon was going to show on one night when it actually didn't. It didn't show until the next night. So by me pre-calculating all my days earlier, it threw my count off. So that's why I haven't counted them yet, but I will be. I'll definitely let y'all know when I do. Right. So I want to make sure that I get it right. 305. I kind of learned my lesson when we were thrown off earlier in the year by doing that ahead of time, right? Because it tells us to watch continuously. When we just begin to rely on technology, sometimes we tend to get a little lazy, right? But technology is only going to output what is put into it. And if we put in wrong information, we're going to get wrong output, right? So it kind of keeps us on our square by interacting with it daily and really watching it for real. Not just, oh, let me check the calendar. No, really watching it for real, right? Okay, y'all. It is Wednesday, August 11, 2021, day 230 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets. Another 3-year consecutive day count, day 899. We read Ezekiel 17, 18, and 19, and we read Fossilized Customs, page 302 to 305. Let's go ahead and do the blessing. I know we got to get to work. All right, y'all. Remember, the blessing is found in Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 through 27. Remember, the first 21 verses is the Nazirite vow, and a man or woman can take it. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his son, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, Yahuwah will kneel down before us, presenting gifts, and will guard us with the hedge of protection. Yahuwah will illuminate the wholeness of his being towards us, bringing order, and he will provide us with love, sustenance, and friendship. Yahuwah will lift up his wholeness of being and look upon us, and he will set in place all we need to be whole and complete. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. All right, beautiful people. Check. Let's see some comments. Tiffany, I know you've been here for a minute, sis. Hey. Okay. Okay. Not really, okay. All right, y'all. I'm glad y'all enjoyed the reading for today. I'll see y'all back here tomorrow, bright and early, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Gotta go. Bruce.